Step closer. It's time for terror and tales. The Price of Disbelief. 8-year-old Lily had always been a bright and imaginative child. Her favorite nights were the ones when her mum would read her stories by the warm glow of her bedside lamp. But lately, her nights had taken on a darker hue, haunted by a strange figure who seemed to watch her from the shadows. It started with a soft tapping on her window. The first time she heard it, she sat up half awake and groggy, thinking it was just the branches outside. But as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw a figure standing by the window. A tall, thin clown with an oversized grin painted across his face, the red of his smile stretching far too high as if his skin might tear from it. The clown's eyes glistened in the moonlight, dark and round like deep, empty pits. He raised a gloved hand, waved slowly, and pressed a finger to his lips, a silent request for her to stay quiet. Frozen in fear, Lily's instincts finally took over, and she sprinted to her parents' room, trembling as she told them what she had seen. But they only smiled and pulled her into a comforting hug, assuring her it was nothing but a bad dream. They told her that no clown could be outside her window, but the following night he returned. Lily tried desperately to stay awake, eyes heavy, but her body tense, waiting for the tapping sound. When it finally came, her heart lurched and she saw him again watching her, from just outside the glass. This time he seemed even closer, his face almost pressed against the window, his painted smile stretching impossibly wide as he waved slowly, deliberately, as if he had all the time in the world. Though she couldn't hear him, she felt his presence call to her, a pull she couldn't quite shake. Her blood turned cold and she hid beneath her covers, praying for sleep to take her, before she could see that ghastly grin any longer. Each morning she pleaded with her parents, begging them to believe her. She described the clown's face, the hauntingly silent wave, the way he seemed to watch her with hollow, all-seeing eyes. But they only smiled, patting her head and telling her once again that it was nothing more than her imagination. The third night was colder than usual, the air thick with a strange sense of anticipation. Lily's nerves were frayed from lack of sleep, her mind foggy as she tried to keep her eyes open. But despite her efforts, she dozed off. She didn't know how long she slept, but she awoke with a start, her room filled with an eerie stillness. And there at the foot of her bed stood the clown, his figure towering and twisted, his grin impossibly wide, his head tilted as he watched her with an intense, unnatural focus. He leaned in closer, his breath brushing against her cheek, cold as winter air. His painted face filled her vision, the colors vivid yet somehow lifeless, his eyes glinting with a dark, empty light. His presence was overwhelming, a nightmare brought to life, but Lily couldn't move. She felt her thoughts slipping away, her fear draining, replaced by a numb, heavy feeling that seemed to reach deep inside her. When Lily's parents came to wake her the next morning, they found her bed empty. The room felt oddly cold, the window left open, and the faint scent of popcorn lingered in the air, as if from a carnival long forgotten. Her mother's heart skipped as her eyes landed on a small, colorful feather resting on the pillow, and a smudged handprint pressed against the window's fogged glass. Outside, the street lay silent, a low mist rolling in, but as they listened, they could hear something faint, a childlike giggle drifting through the air, hollow and eerie, fading into the morning fog. But one night, long after Lily had vanished, her parents heard soft footsteps padding down the hall. They shot up a strange thrill in their hearts as they saw a shadow moving toward their bedroom. They held their breaths, barely daring to hope, until a familiar presence filled the doorway. Lily stood there, her face pale, her eyes dark as the midnight sky. She looked at them, a strange, sad smile on her lips, and for a moment it felt like nothing had changed. But as she looked deeper into their eyes, her expression shifted, tried to warn them, tried to make them believe. The curse she had fallen victim to gripped her still, and in that moment her fate was sealed. She was forever lost to them, bound to the clown's dark world. With a final lingering look, she began to fade, her form becoming shadow, her smile stretching wide like the clown's, her eyes glinting in the dim light. The light in her parents' eyes flickered with desperation, and as they reached out for her, their hands grasped only at air, their hearts shattering with the weight of their loss. All that was left in the doorway was the faint smell of popcorn, a single feather floating to the floor, and a distant mocking laugh that echoed through the empty halls of the house. Lily's parents fell to their knees, tears streaming down their faces, realizing that their disbelief had cost them their daughter. The curse was one of silence and doubt, a dark spell woven from the threads of fear and disbelief. It thrived on the reluctance of adults to believe the innocent claims of children, drawing them into its grasp when they were dismissed or ignored. In their hearts they carried the unbearable weight of regret, knowing they had failed to protect her when it mattered most. As the laughter of the clown faded into silence, they were left with the hollow ache of their grief, echoing through the empty spaces of their home, a constant reminder of their lost daughter and the price of disbelief. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for your daily dose of terror. This tale ends, but the terror lives on. Your turn. Suggest a story for our next tale in the comments.